Most productivity advice sounds reasonable on the surface. It tells you to manage your time better, to be more disciplined, to wake up earlier, to optimize your routines. But underneath all of that advice is an assumption that rarely gets named. It assumes you have control over your time. It assumes your energy is predictable. It assumes you have support systems that you can lean on. And it assumes that your emotional load is minimal or at least manageable. And when those conditions aren't present, the advice doesn't just stop working. It starts to feel personal. Because when the system doesn't account for your reality, the failure gets attributed to you. The problem isn't that people are undisciplined. The problem is that most productivity advice assumes conditions many people don't actually have. That assumption quietly excludes a lot of people, not because they lack motivation, but because their lives don't look like the environment the advice was designed for. And if you've ever felt like you were trying to apply all the right strategies and still coming up short, this conversation is for you. When I say people like us, I'm not talking about a specific identity or demographic. I'm talking about a set of lived conditions that productivity culture rarely acknowledges. People who carry multiple roles at the same time. Work responsibilities, family responsibilities, emotional responsibilities, financial responsibilities, often all at once. People who don't get to optimize first. They have to stabilize first. Before they can plan the perfect routine, something needs to be handled. Before they can experiment with habits, something needs to be maintained. Where responsibility comes before refinement. People who can't fail loudly. They don't get the luxury of public restarts or dramatic resets. If something drops, the consequences are real. So they learn how to absorb friction quietly. They're often the reliable ones, the capable ones, the people who figure things out. And because they can carry weight, more weight keeps getting added. Not maliciously, not intentionally, just gradually. From the outside, it can look like they're doing fine, but internally, they're exhausted, not because they're lazy or unfocused, but because they're operating in a constant state of load. If that description feels familiar, this isn't a diagnosis, it's a context. And when productivity advice doesn't account for that context, it doesn't just miss the mark, it actively creates shame because it treats exhaustion like a character flaw instead of a signal. So let's talk about this advice itself and why it breaks down so quickly for people navigating real load. If you've ever thought, this advice just doesn't work for me, this next part is important. Most mainstream productivity advice is built around a few familiar ideas. You just need better discipline. Wake up earlier. Make time. No excuses. Everyone has the same 24 hours. On the surface, these ideas sound logical. They're clean, they're simple, they're motivating. And for people with stable schedules, predictable energy, built-in support systems, and slack in their day, they can actually work. This is where a lot of productivity advice earns its reputation, because for a specific group of people, it delivers results. What almost never gets discussed is load. Not motivation, not discipline, not mindset. Load. Load is everything you're carrying before you even think about optimizing your time. Load includes the emotional labor, financial pressure, caregiving responsibilities, cognitive fatigue, survival decisions, the cost of simply holding things together. Productivity advice rarely asks, what is already being demanded of this person? What are they absorbing quietly? What happens when rest isn't optional, but unavailable? Instead, it assumes a baseline that many people don't live in. Here's where shame quietly enters the picture. When advice assumes unlimited capacity, any failure looks personal. So when someone works multiple 12-hour shifts, comes home depleted, has nothing left for planners, habits, or evening routines, the conclusion becomes, something must be wrong with me. Not, I'm overloaded. My system is maxed out. This advice wasn't built for my reality. Capacity gets mistaken for character, but capacity is contextual, not moral. It fluctuates, it gets consumed, it can be exceeded. And exceeding it doesn't make you lazy, it makes you human. And then you're told to just make time. Well, just make time only works when time is the primary constraint. For many people, the real constraints are energy, safety, stability, recovery time. You can't optimize your way out of exhaustion. You can't discipline your way through burnout indefinitely. And you can't habit stack when your baseline is survival. This doesn't mean productivity is useless. It means the model is incomplete. So instead of asking, why can't I stick to this system? A more accurate question becomes, what does productivity look like when capacity is limited? That shift alone removes the shame from the equation, because once you account for load, different strategies emerge. How about fewer decisions? Not tighter schedules. Recovery before optimization. Stability before growth. This is the foundation of what we'll build on in the next section. So if traditional productivity advice has ever made you feel behind, broken, or incapable, this isn't a failure on your part. It's a signal that the system wasn't designed with your reality in mind. And in the next section, we're going to talk about what happens when we flip the model. When we design productivity around capacity first, not performance first. How about fewer decisions? Not tighter schedules. Recovery before optimization. Stability before growth. This is the foundation of what we'll build on in the next section. So if traditional productivity advice has ever made you feel behind, broken, or incapable, this isn't a failure on your part. It's a signal that the system wasn't designed with your reality in mind. And in the next section, we're going to talk about what happens when we flip the model. When we design productivity around capacity first, not performance first. So if the issue isn't discipline and it isn't motivation, then we need a different way to think about productivity altogether. Most productivity systems start with the same question. What do you want to accomplish? The capacity first approach starts somewhere else. What do you actually have available right now? That includes time, yes, but also energy, attention, emotional bandwidth, recovery capacity. Because productivity doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens inside a body, a life, and a set of responsibilities. At its core, productivity is not about effort, it's about alignment. You could think of it like this. Your output is less than or equal to your capacity minus your load. When load exceeds capacity, no system works. No planner, no habit tracker, no morning routine. The problem isn't that people aren't trying hard enough. The problem is that they're being asked to perform above capacity indefinitely. That's not productivity. That's extraction. When we talk about productivity, most advice jumps straight to output. How much you're producing, achieving, or checking off. But output doesn't exist in isolation. It is always constrained by two things. Capacity, how much energy, focus, and resilience you actually have available, and load, everything drawing from that capacity before productivity even begins. The reality is this: if you don't respect your load and make accommodations for the fluctuating responsibilities in your life that affects your capacity, your quality of output, the level of your output is going to diminish over time. It is not sustainable. When load increases, emotional stress, financial pressure, caregiving, instability, lack of support, your available capacity shrinks. And when capacity is ignored, output doesn't magically increase. It destabilizes. Performance becomes inconsistent, recovery takes longer, and eventually something gives. This isn't a motivation issue, it's a systems issue. When capacity is respected, when load is acknowledged and managed, output stabilizes again. Not because you tried harder, but because you stopped asking your system to do the impossible. Capacity first does not mean doing less forever, lowering standards permanently, or giving up on growth. It means sequencing correctly. Capacity first means stabilizing before optimizing, reducing your load before adding structure, designing systems that adapt to fluctuation. Some days productivity looks like completing just one essential task, preserving energy for tomorrow, not making things worse. And that still counts. Once you stop moralizing productivity, a few things happen. The shame drops, decision fatigue decreases, consistency becomes possible again. People don't fail systems because they lack discipline. They fail systems because the systems don't flex. When capacity is respected, your discipline becomes lighter. Your structure becomes supportive. Progress becomes sustainable. This is where people often say, I thought I was bad at productivity, when in reality, they were just overloaded. Over the next videos, we're going to explore how to identify your real capacity, not your aspirational one, how to reduce invisible load, how to design productivity systems that work under pressure, and how to grow output without burning out. Not by doing more, but by doing what fits. The goal isn't to become endlessly productive. The goal is to perform well without breaking yourself. That's what capacity first productivity is really about. So what does this actually look like when you're living inside a real life, not a perfectly optimized one? Most productivity systems are built around ideal conditions: full energy, quiet mornings, predictable schedules, uninterrupted focus. Capacity first starts with real conditions: interrupted sleep, emotional carryover from yesterday, competing priorities, limited margin. Instead of asking, what should I be able to do? You ask, what is realistic for me today? That one question changes everything. Before planning anything, pause and assess 3 things. 1, energy. How much do I actually have right now? 2, load. What am I already carrying into today? 3, risk. What happens if I overextend today? This isn't about perfection, it's about preventing self-betrayal. If your capacity is low, you protect it. You narrow the scope. You choose essentials only. If capacity is higher, you expand carefully. You build momentum. You still leave margin. Capacity first reframes success. Productivity is no longer checking everything off, maximizing output daily, performing visibly. It becomes completing what matters most, preserving tomorrow's capacity, and avoiding unnecessary collapse. Some days, productivity looks like 1 meaningful task, 1 hard decision, 1 boundary, and that is not falling behind. That is staying in the game. This approach may feel slower at first, but here's what happens over weeks and months. Burnout cycles decrease. Decision fatigue drops. Consistency becomes natural. Instead of restarting every few weeks, people stabilize. Instead of oscillating between extremes, they build rhythm. Capacity first doesn't chase intensity, it builds durability. If you've ever thought, why can't I keep up? Why do I always fall off? Why does this feel harder for me? Consider this instead. You weren't failing at productivity, you were surviving under load, and survival takes capacity. This channel isn't about doing more. It's about doing what works when your life is real. If that resonates, we're going to build from here. Productivity doesn't need to be louder. It needs to be more humane.